Hello, welcome to our video webinar series. My name is Eric Brand. Today we're going to be talking just a little bit about sanshi, in particular how to look at the quality and assess sanshi. Sanshi is a true ginseng family plant. Sanshi is Panax Notoginseng, so we often call it Notoginseng or pseudo-ginseng. And when you see the whole root, you can see the clear ginseng shape of the root. You have the long neck and the elaborated, what they call horse-tooth nodes, where each new year the rhizome is coming out. Typically we see sanshi after it's been more processed than this. They usually remove the head and then they trim off all these small little tail roots. Sanshi, generally speaking, should be firm, dense, and relatively large. These specimens are relatively small specimens, but they have the natural color. One of the things that's interesting about sanshi is that a lot of the product on the market is black because it's been processed with insect wax and coal smoke to cause it to have a black exterior. And the black product of sanshi is actually what most of us are used to seeing in the pharmacy. And the reason for that's somewhat interesting. Several decades ago, during a period of time when most of the best sanshi was exported out of China because the price was prohibitive for domestic consumption in the top grades, a lot of the best quality product was exported through Hong Kong and then distributed from Hong Kong through to other markets such as the US, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. And a lot of these overseas markets began becoming accustomed to the black colored sanshi. And the sanshi was originally colored black actually to designate the export product from the domestic product. And so during the time when sanshi was, during the communist era, sanshi was, all the high quality sanshi was processed with insect wax and coal smoke to give it a black exterior, shiny surface. And that black color was used to differentiate it from the domestic product. And so the black colored product was slated for export. The natural colored product was used domestically. And so a lot of the part that was used domestically was the relatively small pieces, the relatively lower grade, so all of these small pieces that are broken off. So when we look at sanshi, we notice that the head tends to be relatively large and full, and then the root narrows as it goes down. That head is called a lion's head. And you want to have a relatively large, intact lion's head going down into the root. And so typically the best quality will be larger, more nodular, with a very large top of the root. That's that large top bulbous lion head that comes down into the center of the root. And the one thing that you have to watch out for with the really large specimens is that you need to make sure that the head of the root extends down, you have the head of the root and then the body of the root extends down below the head. Sometimes what you'll see is just one large round cluster where they're actually taking large chunks of other pieces of broken sanshi and gluing them together to make one big sphere. And it looks very large, and based on the idea that the bigger the better, it looks like a relatively high-grade product, but instead of having that big lion's head coming out into a root, it just has a big lion's head. And then if you examine it closely, you'll find that lion's head is actually formed by gluing multiple different chunks of lion head together that are broken off from other larger pieces. So when you're looking at sanshi, the first thing you want to pay attention to is the color. You want it to have a natural color rather than the black color. The black color is just purely a product of the market. It's not something that was done for traditional powder to enhance the properties of sanshi. The black colored sanshi was originally just a market differentiation to separate the export product from the domestic product. And then all of the overseas markets got accustomed to seeing good quality sanshi being black. And so the market preference got established around a black colored root. Now the market preference is returning to the natural colored root. The natural colored root is a brownish color, and it varies from being more reddish brown to more yellowish brown depending on the soil conditions. Sanshi is no longer found in the wild. It's basically completely extinct in the wild environment. All sanshi is now cultivated, and it's principally cultivated in Yunnan province. So generally speaking, when we're looking at sanshi, you want to assess the color, you want to assess the size, you want to assess the intactness, how intact the root is. You want the root to be very large, very dense, and free of any of these little legs and extraneous small rootlets. Also, usually the head is going to be removed. The head is often sold separately at a lower price, as well as all these little rootlets. So when people are making extracts of sanchi, they're typically just using the rootlets. When they're using when they're buying the best quality product, they're buying the body of the root with a nice intact lion's head going down into the central root. And sanchi, another feature of sanchi is that it tends to be damaged by heat. So we usually use sanchi as a powder rather than putting it in a decoction. As a decoction, you usually use about 3 to 9 grams of sanchi. As a powder, you usually use only about 1 to 3 grams. For stopping bleeding, the powder is thought to be more effective than the decoction. And the process of heating the sanchi tends to break down some of the active constituents that help it have its blood stopping effect. So when using sanchi to move the blood, it can be used by decoction or as a powder, but when used to stop bleeding, it's generally preferred to be used as a powder. And sanchi typically can be made into granule products because the prolonged heating of the sanchi tends to break down the ability of sanchi to stop bleeding. So typically what we find is that for granule products, sanchi is just used as a ground powder and given at a dose of about 1 to 3 grams per day, rather than made into a concentrated extract. Sanchi is rich in ginsenosides. It has a very different profile of ginsenosides than renshen or shiyangshen, but also very quantitatively high in ginsenosides, typically over 5% ginsenosides by weight. So when you're using sanchi, pay attention to the color. Get the natural colored, light brown or orangish brown colored roots, and preferably avoid the black colored roots. The black colored roots aren't a problem to use, and they're still commonly used, but they're slowly fading out of fashion in the marketplace now that the market is becoming more educated about the origin of the black coloring and why it was done and why it's unnecessary. So thanks for checking in on our videos, and come back and visit us again soon.